The nuclear launch protocol you're trained to fear is a strategic misdirection. The public imagination fixates on the physics of a missile launch, but ignores the mathematics of a solvency crisis. The first strike will not be a flash of light. It will be absolute silence. Analysts at CSIS confirm over 97% of all intercontinental data, including trillions in daily financial transactions, travels through a handful of vulnerable undersea cables. These are the arteries of the global economy. The blueprint is not to launch 1,000 missiles. It is to make a few precise, untraceable cuts at key maritime choke points. The immediate effect is a systemic liquidity freeze. The dollar's status as a reserve currency becomes a liability, not an asset, when it cannot be digitally cleared. The second vector of this attack is vertical: satellite blinding. Forget cinematic explosions in space. Think targeted dazzling from ground-based lasers or simple co-orbital kinetic strikes against GPS and communication constellations. This is not science fiction. As per Politico, the United States has already demonstrated a small-scale version of this doctrine, using cyber attacks to disable a foreign state's power grid. It is a proven capability. This two-pronged assault creates the blind Leviathan, a nation-state with unparalleled kinetic power, rendered inert. Its carrier groups are adrift, unable to receive targeting data. Its drone fleet is grounded. Its financial markets are frozen. Its government cannot pay its soldiers or clear its debts. The state is physically intact, but digitally decapitated. It is a body without a nervous system facing a solvency event where its currency collapses, mirroring reports on Iran's rial, but at a global scale. The official narrative is a distraction. Modern warfare is not initiated on the battlefield. It is initiated on the balance sheet. The primary motive is not ideology. It is a systemic response to a solvency crisis. A nation-state, like a corporation, can be rendered bankrupt. This is the kill vector. Consider the calculus. According to CSIS analysis, a protracted conventional war is the ultimate domestic liability. It depletes strategic reserves, accelerates inflation, and erodes the political capital required to govern. An unpopular war is a systemic drain on national solvency, mathematically guaranteeing a strategic pivot. This is not theoretical. We have the blueprint from Iran. The engineered collapse of the rial, as documented by Eurasia Review, demonstrates how sustained economic pressure cripples a state's capacity for conventional operations. When your currency is worthless, your ability to fund a symmetric industrial-scale war is neutralized. This manufactured weakness forces the pivot to asymmetry. The state's conventional power is gone, but its obligation to survive remains. It must find new leverage. Reports suggesting the use of U.S. cyber attacks to disable power grids in Venezuela serve as the textbook example of this asymmetric warfare vector. Low cost, high impact, and designed to bypass symmetric military defenses entirely. The equation is therefore immutable. When a state's solvency is systematically destroyed, its expensive conventional forces become a liability it cannot afford. Cornered, it is compelled to escalate. The kinetic and ultimately nuclear option is not a sign of madness. It is the final, logical move in a zero-sum game when all other asymmetric vectors have been exhausted. The core economic calculation of modern warfare is now asymmetric. The Royal United Services Institute, RUSI, has quantified this systemic shift. A state invests $5 million in a main battle tank, a symmetric industrial-era asset. A rival power, or even a non-state actor, neutralizes that asset with a $500 FPV drone. This isn't a battle. It is an asset liquidation at a cost ratio of 10,000 to 1. This vector is the democratization of violence. Lethality is no longer the exclusive domain of solvent nation-states with massive defense budgets. When a country's solvency is attacked, as seen with Iran's collapsing rial, its capacity to absorb these catastrophic kinetic costs is nullified. It cannot sustain a war of symmetric attrition. The mathematical certainty is that it will be forced to escalate to a vector where cost is irrelevant, strategic, launch-on-warning leverage. The do-not-travel advisories and reports of systemic transportation chaos are not random failures. According to analysis from CSIS, these are data points. They signify the activation of proxy laboratories, controlled environments where next-generation economic warfare protocols are stress-tested in the gray zone, far from the primary theater of conflict. The blueprint is documented. Reports indicate the U.S. previously leveraged cyber attacks to disable critical infrastructure, such as turning off the lights in Venezuela. This is not theory, it is precedent. These proxy zones serve to refine this exact vector, attacking a nation's core functionality without firing a single conventional shot, making a country uninhabitable for its own citizens and toxic to foreign capital. The strategic objective is to engineer a systemic solvency crisis, identical to the model that led to the rial's breaking point in Iran, which is now redrawing the map of the Middle East. By rehearsing these protocols in secondary states, an adversary perfects a weapon that makes symmetric military retaliation fiscally impossible for the target. This isn't about regional instability, it is the deliberate cultivation of instability as a weapon. While Chinese envoys accuse the U.S. of pushing toward kinetic war, the real conflict vector is being perfected elsewhere. The mathematical certainty is this: once a nation's liquidity is gone and its grid is a liability, its only remaining leverage is the launch code. The launch-on warning protocol is a relic of Cold War game theory, a systemic fail-safe to guarantee retaliation against a decapitating first strike. The logic is brutal. If early warning systems detect incoming missiles, you launch your own before they are destroyed in their silos. The kinetic cost of hesitation is total annihilation. It is a mathematical certainty. Now, inject a new asymmetric vector: cyber warfare. A hostile actor does not need to launch a physical missile to trigger this protocol. They only need to create the illusion of one. According to CSIS analysis, the primary target is not the missile silo, but the sensory apparatus of the state, its network of satellites and ground-based radar. This is not theoretical. Reports based on statements from former President Trump suggest the U.S. has already deployed cyber attacks as a kinetic substitute, allegedly to disable the power grid in Venezuela. This establishes a public precedent for infrastructure-level cyber warfare. The capability is proven, the will to use it is demonstrated. This creates the fog of digital war. When the screens in the command bunker go black, the commander faces a zero-sum choice. Is this a system malfunction? Or is it a sophisticated cyber attack blinding the network just moments before impact? The protocol does not allow for deliberation. With solvency and symmetric options nullified, the fear of being neutralized forces the commander's hand. They are mathematically compelled to assume the worst and initiate the launch sequence. The digital attack becomes the kinetic trigger. The protocol for testing an adversary's solvency is not kinetic. It is systemic. Reports confirm the blueprint: asymmetric attacks on critical infrastructure demonstrated in operations against Venezuela's power grid, while analysts focus on currency collapse in states like Iran or tensions in the Taiwan Strait. They miss the vector of the next phase. The objective is not to initiate war, but to calibrate the opponent's response matrix. A hostile actor must quantify the political will and systemic fragility of a nation before committing to a full-spectrum solvency crisis. Therefore, a calibration shot is a mathematical certainty. Within the next 12 months, expect a systemically significant U.S. logistics hub, the Port of Los Angeles, a Long Beach, or a major AWS data center to suffer a full-spectrum 48 to 72-hour blackout. The event will be publicly attributed to a cascading grid failure or a novel SCADA malware. It will be officially attribution impossible. The financial cost will be a secondary metric. The primary deliverable is a precise measurement of U.S. response latency from detection to kinetic posturing.